Want to learn how to knit? The first step is cast on. Today I'll teach you the long tail cast on and why you need to learn it. Hi friends, I'm Laurel from Alabaster Purl, and today I'm going to be teaching you the very first thing you need to know about knitting, and that's the long tail cast on. I'll also be including some helpful tips that I wish I had known when I was first learning to knit. And I recommend that you watch this video at least one time before you try to do the long tail cast on with me. The long tail cast on is a little bit more complicated than some other cast ons out there, and I'm going to be showing those side by side. Yes, it is more complicated, but I promise you that it's worth it. Please, please, please learn this one. The cast on is your foundation for your first row of stitches, and it's going to set you up for success. The easier cast on that I've seen countless times on YouTube makes me cringe because your stitches are first twisted. You'll see what I mean in the tutorial. Anytime I'm teaching a friend to knit, I always recommend a bulkier yarn. I recommend a size 5 or a size 6. Do not knit with anything smaller. You won't be able to see what you're doing, and that's so frustrating. So this size 6 bulky yarn recommends a size US 13 or a 9mm needle, and you can find that on the label itself. You're gonna have weight and then the needle recommendation here. Also, don't knit with these as you're learning to knit. I cannot emphasize that enough. I see beginners trying to manage these and it's such a nightmare. First of all, they're metal, so they're more slick, and your yarn is going to be sliding all over the place, which is so frustrating when you're trying to learn what to do with that yarn. And they're also heavier, and the longer the needle, the more difficult it is for your hands to manage. And as you're learning how to even handle these needles, the shorter needle is going to be your best friend. I highly recommend trying with wooden needles first because they have more texture to them and they're not as slippery as the metal needles, so your yarn is going to be able to hold on to that a little bit better. You have two options. You either have the straight needles like this, or you have circular needles like this where they're connected. These are more multi-purpose because you can knit hats, whereas these you can only knit something flat like a scarf. So these are definitely more limiting. They're also heavier and easier to slip out of your hands, but they do have their purpose. The circular needles are nice because the cord actually supports the weight in your working hand. So these might be your best friend as you're learning to knit. If you are going to go with a circular knitting needle, I highly recommend getting a 16-inch circular. That means that this whole thing is only 16 inches. It can go longer, a 24-inch, which is your next size, and that's gonna be way too long. You can't make hats on that because the string is too long. So start with your yarn size, and then you can find the needle size that you need to go from there. This is Lion Brand Hometown USA, and this is the color Madison Mustard, and I'm a big fan of it. Pro tip, as you're learning to knit, do not use a dark yarn. Use something that is easy to see. If you're trying to learn on black or like a really dark gray yarn, oh my goodness, you're gonna have such a hard time understanding what it is that you're doing. So I highly recommend using something light. This is easy to see. Also, do not use that like wavy yarn. I'll look it up and post a picture here. It is such a nightmare to learn on. No frilly yarn, nothing with glitter, nothing with faux fur, just learn on basic yarn, and then once you get comfortable with it, you can branch out to your heart's content. Stick with me. I promise that it's worth it. So let's get knitting. I like to pull my yarn from the center of the skein. That way it's not rolling all over the place. So the first thing we're gonna do is make a slip knot. If you don't know how to do that, my favorite method is wrap the yarn around your thumb and finger like that. Twist it, and I grab this top yarn with these two fingers. Pull that, and we're gonna slip that onto your needle, like that. And you want the tail of the yarn at the bottom. And you're gonna have the working yarn at the top. The long tail cast on uses more yarn from the top portion. So if you had it twisted the other way, you might run out of yarn as you're casting on your stitches. All right, so what you're gonna do is grab the yarn and make a thumbs up with your left hand. And then we're gonna split this yarn with your pointer finger and your thumb finger with your pointer finger and your thumb. And then you're holding the tail and the working yarn with your other 3 fingers, and then you're gonna pull that down and make a heart. And then we're gonna slide that needle up your thumb and then down your finger and then pull it through that loop. And there's your second stitch. Let's do that again. Grab the yarn, make a thumbs up, split that yarn with your finger and your thumb, pull it down, make that classic heart shape, go up your thumb, down your finger, through the loop, and pull. You want to make sure that these stitches can move pretty easily on that needle, because if they can't, if it's too tight, then you're going to have a really, really hard time knitting into them on your first row. And the first row can be a challenge as you're learning to knit, so you want to set yourself up for success. All right, let's cast on a few more stitches. So grab your yarn, split it with your thumb and finger, slide up your thumb, slide down your finger and through that loop on your thumb. Pull it a little tight, and you want to make sure that those are pretty consistent on how much you're tightening them, because you will notice it once you're done with your project. And eventually, you don't need to intentionally grab the yarn and do that step. Eventually, your hands will just get used to it. And you actually just move your hands back up. It's a nice fluid motion, but for now, you're gonna have to be pretty intentional about it. Scoop your stitches down, up your thumb, down your finger, through that loop. Up your thumb, down your finger, through that loop. All right, so those stitches are exactly what you're looking for to cast on. Now I'm going to show you the lazy cast on. You do not want to do this cast on, and I will show you exactly why. Yes, it's easier. It's less complicated than the long tail cast on, but your stitches are twisted. So these are correctly casted on stitches. Those are not twisted. These are twisted. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but once you've knitted for a while, you can already see that these stitches are twisted. The other difference is you've got this really nice finished rim. And if this was a hat, it makes that brim just a little bit more defined. Whereas this, it's a different look, but the main thing that you want to avoid is these twisted stitches, especially when you're learning to knit for the first time. This makes it so challenging to knit into these. So don't do that. Eventually this becomes first nature, and it actually is really fun. Okay, call me a nerd. I think it's really fun. Oops. But you still make mistakes sometimes. Make sure not to split your yarn, which would mean doing that. That's a big no-no. You want to make sure that the yarn goes completely around the needle. And that's what we're going for. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I understand that there's a ton of them out there, so it means so much that you took the time to watch this one. Stay tuned, keep watching, and I'll teach you the knit and the purl stitch, the 2 most important stitches in the knitting world. With those 2 things, you can make so many items. Really, I promise, that's all you need. If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I love this maker community so much, and I really want to give you guys the tools that I've learned, but I'd also love to hear the tools that you want to learn. So give me a comment below and let me know what tutorials you'd like to see next. Thanks so much, have a great day, and happy knitting. And also some history. Stay tuned and you'll see how I highly recommend trying with wooden knitting needle. And also some helpful hips that oh my gosh. Okay. Catch the next video and learn the cast off with me. No, you need to learn to knit and purl.